Women out here blaming men for their poor performances, knowing damn well they should have been using Dove instead of Irish Spring.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by Blue Apron. Go to blueapron.com/LOFB to get yourself 3 free meals. My name is Josh Lloyd, and as always, you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball, Instagram the same, and Facebook at facebook.com/redrockbasketball, where the majority of these shows are streamed live and you can watch live and interact with them. Always very mindful when doing a show on a Sunday night that I do it before Game of Thrones, because I know that nobody's going to be watching this show live when Game of Thrones is on, and I want to watch Game of Thrones as well. So getting that done. I'm also competing with WWE SummerSlam at the moment, so many of you may be watching that at this point, but there'll be some of you tuning in live. I can see some of you have already joined into the live show here at the moment. What we're going to do is Yahoo Fantasy Basketball opened at the end of last week. So I'm going to go through their initial rankings and some of the early ADP stuff that has come out, which is very highly influenced by the ranks, especially after a couple of days. So there won't be too much different between those two, but talk about those things and how I see all that stuff playing out. So
let's get to it.
A quick note on that though. You'll hear me talk about guys that I think are too high or too low. And for those of you who may not have cottoned on, when I say that, that's sort of giving you some sort of an insight or an inkling into how the Basketball Monster projections are going to look when they come out. And they will be out, most likely the site will be open for memberships on next Monday, the 28th, or it could be earlier than that. So that's what we're currently looking at the moment for Basketball Monster memberships. So probably about a week away, maybe a little bit less. You might have it at the end of this week as well. But that gives you an idea when I talk about guys, this guy's way too high, this guy's way too low. It gives you an indication of how some of these guys have come out during projections. A couple other things I want to mention before I get into the bulk of this podcast. Patreon, if you didn't hear the other day, if you are a Patreon subscriber, $3 and up, you have got access now to the exclusive Josh Lloyd Patreon Slack channel where you can chat with me and all the other Patreon subscribers about anything, basically redraft leagues, dynasty leagues, NBA draft. We've got some non-basketball channels in there as well, a TV channel with some discussion that's starting there talking about our favorite TV shows. But it's a good place where you can hit me up privately and get some group ideas about player values, league formats, different ways to go about things. And it's been a sensational success so far. So if you do want to support the show and get access to, and that's where my priority in terms of answering questions will be. I'll still be answering questions on Twitter, of course, but the priority goes to the guys in the Slack channel. And it's a really lively discussion that will start happening throughout the season for DFS, for seasonal, for redraft, for dynasty, for all that sort of, even though seasonal and redraft are the same things. We'll be doing all that sort of stuff on that Slack channel. So if you want to become a Patreon subscriber, head to patreon.com/redrock_bball. One other thing I want to mention is, my original site, Red Rock Basketball. I don't write anything for that site anymore because all my stuff goes to Basketball Monster, of course, now. But did have someone reach out to me and say, look, I'm interested in doing some fantasy writing. Would you be interested? And I said, look, you know what? The website's sitting there. So if you want to write some stuff and put it out there, you can. So it's a guy by the name of Adam King who's written a couple of articles there. So you'll see the articles go out on Red Rock Basketball. They're not me writing them. They are Adam that's writing them. Everything he's written so far has been spot on that I've agreed with it anyway. But there'll be things that we don't agree with, and that's fine. That's just another avenue for some information, and dissenting opinions are totally fine in fantasy because we're trying to predict the future a lot of these times. So not everyone's going to be, or no one's going to be 100% correct 100% of the time. So why don't you go and check out some of Adam's work over at redrockbasketball.com. He's got had a couple of articles come out there. He'll have a few more that come out as well. Just things that he's interested in and things that he wants to get out there. And I do suggest that you read them. So go and check out the stuff on redrockbasketball.com. I also want to, someone mentioned to me, Josh, you don't talk about auction values much. You more talk about draft positions and rounds. How come you don't mention players' dollar value? And I'll tell you the reason why. It's part of the reason why I don't mention points leagues as well. So auction drafts They're the best format. They're absolutely 100% the best format for drafts. There's no debating that. It can be harder to do. Everyone's got to be there in the room to do it. You've got to be engaged. You've got to know what you're doing. It's very easy to just destroy people in an auction draft if they've got no idea, which might appeal to some of you, but you can absolutely kill people if they've got no idea what they're doing. But the reason I don't talk about auction dollar values is it is completely different. If you're in a 10-team league, if you're in a 12-team league, if you're in a 20-team league, if you're in a league that rosters 13 people, if it rosters 15 people, if it rosters 20 people, everything changes. In a snake draft, a guy that is ranked 10th, or in that, say he's ranked a second-round player. He's a second-round player for a 10-team league. He's a second-round player for a 12-team league. He's a second-round player for a 14-team league, or not only second round. He's a player that's ranked in the teens in all those leagues, because in the teens in a 30-team league, it's first round. So he's ranked in the teens for a 10, a 12, a 14, a 16, an 18, a 20, a 30. He's ranked in that same spot for all those. But in an auction league, in a 10-team league, he might be worth $60. In a 30-team league, he might be worth $150. That's a big difference. So I can't go around saying for every player, well, you probably want to spend $50 on him in this sort of league. If you're going to, otherwise just spend 70, otherwise just spend 85, otherwise just spend 90. And the other thing with auctions is once the first bloke goes off the board, everything changes. If the first guy has a perceived value, or what I think his value is $80, and he goes off at 60, then there's another $20 out there that's got to go to someone else. So someone's going to either go way too high or way too low. Or the flip side to it is that at the start of those auctions, a lot of these players, I think there might be $70, and then KD goes for 80, and Yanni goes for 85, and you go, oh, there's all this extra money coming off. So therefore, the next batch of guys, the guys between 20 and 50 in that zone, they're all going to be cheaper. So the values that I told you before won't necessarily hold. So there's so many different parts and pieces to auction drafts. So that's why I don't refer to those dollars. Of course, you can check all that out on Basketball Monster, customize your league settings, dollar amounts, roster size, league size, and it will tell you how much these players you should value, how much you should value them, and you'll be able to see where you're able to get those bargains. So that's why I don't refer to auction prices on the shows, because they're just wildly variable. They just change all the time. In draft, they change. League size, they change. It's impossible to give a complete overview of those things succinctly in a podcast. So I hope that all makes sense and you understand why I don't reference auction values as much, even though it is absolutely the best way of doing a fantasy draft. Now it's time for me to tell you about today's sponsor, one of the great companies that help get this show to air, and that is Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the United States. Its mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. I love Blue Apron. I love the concept of Blue Apron. I wish it was available here, but I have used it. I've used it over when I was in the States, and it's fantastic. You get the pre-portioned food sent to you in exactly the right quantities that you need, so there's no waste. There's no going to different markets, got to go to Whole Foods for this, got to go to Trader Joe's for this, got to go to your standard supermarket, I've got to go to the deli, I've got to go to the butcher to get all your different things. Blue Apron sends it all to you, and it is of extremely high quality. They support a sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for their ingredients and building a community of home chefs, which is what you become by using a product like Blue Apron. Cooking helps to build your own personal skills. It also helps to bring in closer family bonds, cooking with your girlfriend, with your boyfriend, with your husband, wife, with your kids. I cook with Ben often, and I'm getting him to start learning how to cook. Follow a recipe. Ben, grab a knife, cut the onion for me. What do you do? Measure this. Get it together. He's learning how to do these things, and that's something you can do with your own kids as well. Get them involved in cooking. If you get them involved in cooking, they're more likely to want to eat it as well, to be honest, because they know what goes into it. They know how it's done, and that's the lesson I've found from it. And Ben's cooking skills have gone through the roof. He can do anything. He can dice onions. He can crush garlic. He can measure things. He can fry stuff. He can do anything now, and it's from these sort of things. And this is what you can do with a product like Blue Apron. If you want to look at the food that's coming up at Blue Apron, there's some they've got a Master Chef recipe that's not revealed yet for the week of September the 4th. But apart from that, a fusilli bucati pasta with summer squash, corn, and heritage globe. Tomatoes, ratatouille tarts with marinated summer squash, salmon and udon noodle stir fry with sweet peppers and bok choy. And the salmon that I've had from Blue Apron has been fantastic. So if you are a little bit adverse to fish, and I don't understand people who are just so anti-fish, but I know there's people out there, check out their salmon. It is fantastic. So go ahead and try Blue Apron. It's easy for you to try because you can get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/LOFB. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so don't wait. That's blueapron.com/LOFB. Blue Apron, a better way to cook, and I do agree with that. Let's talk about these Yahoo ranks now, and they came out. Now, we had that discussion about the ESPN ranks last week, and there was just some ludicrous numbers there, but I feel like that's some sort of computer glitch, because again, in the ESPN draft room, those ranks aren't there. When you click on full projections, those ranks change, but when you click on sortable projections, they're up shit creek. You've got Damian Lillard at number 3 and Kevin Durant at number 19. That doesn't make sense. But their other stuff is pretty similar. And to be honest, the Yahoo ranks are very, very similar to the ESPN ranks that came out. The guys who appear way too low to me in ESPN, it's a very similar situation on Yahoo. These things are going to change. I can almost guarantee that. Wouldn't be surprised if they change a few days after the Basketball Monster projections come out. Something that has happened quite a few times in the past. That's something that might happen. But don't be surprised if these change. But if you're doing your drafts in the next week or so, you might be able to get some value from some of these guys. But there's not crazy ones. There are some that might be 10 out. But even then, as I say often, you get to the 40s or 50s or 60s. 10 draft spots could be the difference between 2 blocks over the course of the season. That's how close some of these player rankings can be. So I want to highlight the ones that I think are more egregious, or the ones that I think can really be exploited, or ones to be avoided as well. Much like with ESPN, Gordon Hayward is ranked too high. He's ranked at number 24 here on Yahoo. I don't buy that. I've got him lower than that. I just think going to a situation where he's got to share that usage with Isaiah Thomas, and it's going to hurt Isaiah Thomas a little bit as well. It's not going to be a huge amount, but it is going to hurt Isaiah Thomas. I think that's going to be a tough thing for Hayward to be at that sort of a level at pick 24. There's no way that I want to take the last pick in the second round on a guy like Gordon Hayward. And that's something that will be a discussion for another day as well. When you've got that pick at the turn, your different strategies, and maybe you could say, okay, at pick 24 or 25, I take Hayward because I don't pick again for another 20 or so picks. But last year, Gordon Hayward was the 33rd ranked player. So sites like Yahoo and ESPN are expecting him to have a 10-spot improvement on last season, going into a situation where he's going to have to share the ball more, where there's a glut of wings, and I just don't see that being the case. So to me, that's a pretty silly ranking to have him at that spot. Miles Turner, much like ESPN, he's too low. He's at 31. Turner has a real legitimate chance at cracking the top 20. I don't think he should really escape the top 24, the second round in a lot of cases. I don't think he should escape that zone. He is a big that blocks shots, hits free throws, hits some threes. I think that can improve, but has good percentages. So as an elite roto center with his high field goals and high free throw percentage, his block shots, his scoring and usage is going to go up as well. I think his rebounding will have to increase a little bit because Paul George was quite a good rebounder. So I think you'll see that from Miles Turner increasing as well. Now, while 31 is not too far away from where he wants to be, if he's available at 31, I'm snaffling him up at that spot pretty much all the time. And as I have harped on plenty of times, in getting quality centers late is not an easy task. There are more quality point guards in those middle rounds, 10 to 15 point guards in those rounds, whereas centers, there's maybe 2. Marc Gasol, Brookie Lopez, maybe in that zone. Like that's pretty much it in those. There's probably some other guys that I'm missing. Like you could look at Jonas Valanciunas. There's a massive risk factor there. He's not playing 30 minutes. But getting a guy like Turner who's going to play 30 minutes, absolutely no doubt about it, can be quite valuable. And that's what also boosts Karl Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic and Boogie Cousins and Anthony Davis a little bit earlier on as well, just because of that ability to get a reliable center. It's not an easy thing to do later on. DeMar DeRozan comes in at 32. Much like with Hayward, I don't see DeRozan improving on his rank from last season. He had a fantastic season last year. Some of it was without Kyle Lowry, but he also played fantastically when Lowry was in the lineup. I just don't see DeRozan getting to that stage. For years, he was an underrated fantasy player. For some reason now, he's a little bit overrated. I get his points are great and his free throws are great. And if you took him at 32, I wouldn't think it's terrible because getting that free throw influence and the points can be really useful. But I don't think he's the guy I want at 32. You got your Brad Beals in that zone. Klay Thompson's another guy in that zone. And I guess I could make an argument for DeRozan over Thompson just for the free throw percentage. But I don't think that 32 is a great spot.
My name is Jeff.
Jeff Teague comes in at 39, and I cannot get behind that for the life of me. Yes, Jeff Teague did well last year. He averaged almost 8 assists, and people are looking at averaged 8 assists last year. Now he'll have better players to pass to, and I go, okay. But the year before, when he was on Atlanta and had better players to pass to with Paul Millsap and Al Horford and Kyle Korver on that team, he averaged 5.9 assists. So which one is it? He got more assists on a shitty team with the Pacers, but when he was on a better team, he got less assists. So which one is it? The other thing is he is going to be a fourth option on offense. So he's going from the second option to the fourth option. He's going to be behind Jim Butler. He's going to be behind Karl Anthony Towns. He's going to be behind Andrew Wiggins. And the other thing we need to remember is Jimmy Butler is going to have the ball in his hands a lot, very much a lot. He thinks he's a point guard. I think Tom Thibodeau was going to use him as a point guard in a lot of situations. So Teague is not going to average 8 assists. He is not going to get the same amount of shot attempts that he had last season. So to me, seeing Jeff Teague at 39 is a waste of a pick at 39. I'd rather take his former backup Dennis Schroeder at that pick than Jeff Teague. And this is not for me to say that Teague is a bad player. I just think he's probably 15 to 20 spots higher than where he should be at that stage. Carmelo Anthony at 45 is an absolute waste of a pick. I think that Melo's great. Look, he can score his 20 points, but we don't know if he's going to end up in New York. And if he goes to Houston, he could have a 40 spot drop pretty comfortably. He could drop, he could drop from 40 to 80. And I don't have him at 40, but that's where this ranking has him. He could drop down to 80. I don't think taking Melo inside the top 50 is a great move. Again, getting those points can be useful. He hits the threes. He's got a good free throw percentage, but that is just a name brand type of pick to me. Al Horford at 52 it's an interesting one. I don't think it's terribly low, but I also think that if Al Horford's slipping to 52, I talked about the lack of big men in those middle rounds. Well, if Horford's getting to you at 52, then I like that. I think that he is better than that. I understand the concerns with Hayward coming there, but a lot of Horford's value is in his ability to get those assists. He hits threes now. He's blocking shots. He's getting steals. He's got good percentages. A really good roto center there as well. Helpful in head-to-head leagues also, but I'm not worried about the arrival of Hayward taking away a significant chunk of usage from Al Horford because he wasn't a massive usage guy in the first place. And that's something we do need to remember, and I do need to talk about. And I will talk about at another stage, is about usage. People get usage confused. Oh, he's going to have huge usage now. Oh, he's going to lose a lot of usage. But you don't know what usage means. Some of you do, and maybe everyone listening to this podcast do, but a lot of people saying that don't know what usage means. Oh, he's going to get a huge uptick in usage. His fantasy value is going to go through the roof. But that's not what it is. Usage is turnovers. Usage is field goal attempts. Usage is free throw attempts. That is it. That is absolutely all that usage is. It is those three categories. So someone said to me, oh, you took Robert Covington, you took Bob Cove too high at like 75. And he's going to lose all this usage with Simmons and Fultz. And I go, that's cool, but his game has got nothing to do with usage. It's to do with rebounds, steals, blocks, high free throw percentage, and hitting threes, which have got absolutely nothing to do with usage. So yes, Horford loses some usage, which is some field goal attempts. Doesn't affect his rebounds, which are shit anyway, but I know. His assists, it doesn't affect his blocks, it doesn't affect his steals, it doesn't affect his actual percentages. In fact, it could help his percentages. In some cases, having a lower usage can actually help your percentages because you're having lower attempts, so therefore the impact of them can be decreased. So if you're a poor field goal percentage guy, and then you have a lower usage, then the negative impact of your field goal percentage is lessened, and that makes you a better fantasy player. So that's something important when you see that word usage thrown around. And again, a lot of people throw it around because they think it makes them look smart or makes them feel smart. No, usage, man. It's all about usage. He's going to get his usage dropped, but they don't know what it means. And that's important to understand what these, and advanced stats are great. I like them. I use them a lot. I talk about them a lot. But if you don't know what they mean, then they're bullshit. Then what you're saying is bullshit. If you don't understand how they work in context with all that stuff, then it doesn't make sense. And usage is not all that advanced. But you have to know what it means to be able to apply it. And I think that's something with Horford as well. Yes, he'll lose some shot attempts, but a lot of his other things will still be there and still provide value. Andrew Wiggins is at 53. Much like I talked about with Jeffy Teague, I just have concerns about Wiggins with the arrival of Butler. We haven't seen his ability to do anything in those non-usage categories. Rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, threes. Like, he hasn't been able to do big things in those categories. And he is going to take a usage hit, so that is going to impact him because Butler's going to arrive. Now, Levine averaged 20 shots per 100 possessions last year for the Wolves. Butler averaged 22 shots per 100 possessions for the Bulls. So right there's a discrepancy. It's not a big one, but those shots have got to come from somewhere. Jeff Teague is a much higher field goal attempts per 100 guy than what Ricky Rubio was. So there's some shots there. Now, I think that Teague takes a bigger hit, but Wiggins is going to have to take somewhat of a step back. Also, if we think that Kyle Anthony... Now, Wiggins took way more shots than Karl Towns did last year. So if we think that Towns is taking a step up and the pendulum is swinging his way, then Wiggins is going to take that hit. I still think he averages 20 points a game, but he just doesn't do enough in those other categories. Maybe this, in his 4th season, is the season where he becomes some sort of wing distributor, where he starts becoming a defensive menace, where he starts actually giving 2 shits about grabbing a single rebound. Maybe that happens. But at 53, I'm not willing to take that risk on Wiggo at that spot. If he's around at 70, fine. The points are really valuable. Like I said with DeRozan and Melo, that 20 points a game, they're the 3 blokes that are outside the top 30 or 40 who can get you those numbers, maybe on Devin Booker as well. So that can be valuable there. But at 53, not for me. Benny Simmons, and this 50 range in Yahoo is where there's a lot of weirdness going on. Benny Simmons at 54, that's all well and good. Haven't seen the dude play, so that's part of it. Not going to be a high scorer. He's going to get some assists. He's a very, very good rebounder. He can get steals, not a bad shot blocker, but what's his percentages going to be like? How... He didn't actually... while he's such a good passer, he didn't average huge amounts of assists while in college at LSU. And I think he can be a beast, but I think taking him at 54 is probably taking him at ceiling, and that's never something that you want to do. Jackie Dalich chimes in live and says, if Nikola Mirotic returns, where do you take him? You're going to be able to take him outside the top 100, and I will be 100% all over that. I know there's risk there. I know that Fred Hoiberg is going to screw him up at some point. He'll probably try and get Bob Portis in there, which is bad because Portis is bad. He might put Lauri Markkanen in there, which again is a bad decision. But if Mirotic starts and they give him 28 minutes, then he cracks the top 100. So he's definitely a guy that I would take outside that top 100 and see how that goes. Another guy in this 50 range, which I think is probably the most ludicrous one of them all, is Marcin Gortat at 57. I just cannot get behind that. I've given my thoughts on Gortat plenty of times. The second half of last season, he was outside the top 200 once Jan Mahinmi returns. Mahinmi's there now. Markieff Morris is going to play at center. Gortat is not going to get enough minutes. It is not happening at 57. It is a waste of a pick, so don't do it. Dario Saric at 58. Come on, man. Saric wasn't the 58th ranked player last season. And now he's going to be in a lesser role. And if he starts over Robert Covington, I will fall off this chair multiple times. He will play behind... He can't play the 3. He will play behind Simmons as the backup 4. He will be a guy that gets a lot of shots up in that second unit. But he's not playing the same minutes as last year. And as I've stated plenty of times, he played well for 6 weeks last year. And everybody was ready for the rusty trombone on him. They were so ready for that. Oh, Saric got to be Rookie of the Year because he had this really strong 6-week stretch. Bad before, bad after. Really, really good in that middle period when everybody was out for the Sixers. It was him and Covington pretty much doing everything. And that was great. But he's not going to have that same role this season. There's no way he's going to have that same role. So taking him at 58 is just a ludicrous move. You should never do that. Jay Crowder at 60. I like Crowder to a degree. I think he is a little bit overrated by some people, especially in fantasy circles. But with the arrival of Hayward, the arrival of Marcus Morris, the arrival of Jason Tatum, perhaps more minutes for Jaylen Brown, how is Crowder going to get the same minutes as last year or more? How is he going to be more productive than what he was last year? That is going to be the challenge. And his usage will shrink, and I gave that whole spiel on usage, but it's not just about his usage. Obviously, he does stuff with steals. He can hit his threes. He's an okay-ish rebounder, but the problem is his minutes won't be there. So that minutes impacts every stat. Your ability to play on the court, the more minutes you play, the more steals you can get, the more blocks you can get, the more rebounds you can get. And I think his minutes are going to take a hit this season. He's not going to be playing... He will still probably be playing 30, but he's not going to be playing 33, 32, 34. He's not going to be in that sort of a zone in terms of minutes. So I'm not all that not that keen on him at that spot. That just feels way too high for him. Jabari Parker at 63. He's coming back after the All-Star break pretty much, so that's ridiculous. The pencil at 64. Again, he wasn't that good last year. So he was good, he was good, but he wasn't the 64th best player last year. So are we expecting him to take a step up? And if so, how? Where are we expecting him to take this step up? He is a guy whose value came from, I am taking a lot of shots and I am scoring them. I'm not doing much in any of the other categories, and now Dennis Smith arrives, and we're going to probably get a little bit more out of Dirk, because Dirk had that Achilles problem for a lot of last season. So maybe the pencils shots decrease. And he's not a high steals, rebounds, assists, blocks sort of a guy. He's not hitting huge amounts of threes. He's not an elite percentage guy. A lot of his value is coming from the fact that he was scoring 20 points per game. And he might not reach that same threshold that he did last year just with those additions, with the addition of Smith, with the return of Dirk, with some growth from Curry perhaps. I just think that you're expecting him to take a step forward from where he was last year, and I think that might be tough. Victor Oladipo comes in at 66 on Yahoo's rankings, and a lot of people might say that's fair enough. I think that Oladipo has got a huge opportunity this season to be a top 40 player. I wouldn't take him there, but he can absolutely do that. And I think that if you're grabbing him in the 60s, I'm all for that. Now, there are going to be many people listen to this podcast who are going to be swearing off him. Oh, I took him last year. Killed me. Never again. Which is the absolute worst attitude that you can have in fantasy in any situation. I had him last year. Killed me. Oh, in the playoffs, he had, and this is not an Oladipo related thing. I saw this. Someone was talking about LaMarcus Aldridge. Had him last year. Never drafting him again because in the playoffs he was inconsistent. What? That doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense here with Oladipo as well. I think we forget that the Russell Westbrook show killed everybody on that team. And I've gone into at lengths about what happened to Oladipo. He had an inexplicable 10% drop in his free throw percentage. His block rate was cut in half. His assist rate was cut in half. He's not playing with Russell Westbrook. He's playing with Darren Collison. So I imagine his assist rate comes back up. I imagine, hopefully, with a little bit more confidence of being not go stand in the corner, Vic your shit house, that maybe his free throws come back up. Maybe he can be more aggressive defensively because the Thunder is not an aggressive shot-blocking team for the Wings. So maybe his blocks come back up. Maybe his steals come back up. I think all that can happen. And taking him at 66 is something that I'll be all over. Because not only do I think he can be a top 40 guy, there is an outside chance that he finishes the highest ranked pacer. And that means he jumps over Miles Turner, who's probably going to be a top 25 guy. And Oladipo could be that. And that's a stretch. And you never take him there, never. But at 66, that's screaming a lot of value. And there'll be times when he actually passes that. If you're full of a league of guys who just either don't get it or are in that mindset of killed me last year, therefore nothing can ever change because nothing changes in life ever, of course. Once something happens and that's it. You might be able to get him even after that. And that would be great value to me. Trev Ariza at 68. Yeah, not buying that. He's one of those guys who's one of his best or best categories is turnovers, and that is an inflation of value. He's a year older. He's much older than you think. He's like 33. The addition of Chris Paul there as well could be an issue against Ariza's numbers. I just don't see him being at that sort of a level. I still think he's going to play a solid amount of minutes, but he wasn't that good last year, and I don't really see it being the case this year. D'Angelo Russell's at 72. I know people will be cautious about D'Angelo. I think he's in for an absolute monster of a year, and I think he's pretty much a lock for a top 50 guy this year. He was top 50 down the stretch last season, post All-Star. I don't care if he starts. I don't care if he's the point guard. I don't care if he's the shooting guard. I think you should be expecting 17 points, 6 assists, 3-4 rebounds, 2 threes a game. Yeah, the field goal percentage might be an issue, and that's something you have to pay attention to, but I think he's going to have a monster, and at 72, that's great value. You'll hear me talk about one of his teammates in a second as well. If you want to go the opposite of great value, Zach Randolph is at 74. Legit might not play in the NBA this year. Got into a discussion with someone on Reddit the other day that they think that Zach Randolph and Costa Koufos are going to be the starting 4 and 5 for the Kings, which I vehemently disagree with. It could be the case. Dave Yeager made bafflingly bad decisions all season last year. One of them was starting Costa Koufos and playing him 20 minutes a game. But Zebo's not good. Zebo played 24 or 25 minutes a game last year and was horrible. When you have the highest usage on the team and a true shooting of 48%, that's absolutely horrendous, and that's pretty much what he was. His ability to get blocks and steals and assists was never high, and it's not changing. His rebounding rate has dropped significantly. He's just not going to get enough minutes, and at 74, that's the end of your draft if you're taking him at 74. Gorgie Dieng at 77 is an interesting one. I like Gorgie Dieng. I think that he should be the starter there, and I'm I'm 99% confident he will start for the Timberwolves. A lot of people say, nah, Tibbs brought in Taj. He's a Tibbs guy. Taj is going to start. And I just think to myself, Taj never started for Tibbs. He was always off the bench. He finished games, yeah, but he was never a starter for Thibodeau. He was never playing 31, 32 minutes a game for Thibodeau. We saw Taj have a significant drop-off last season. And Jeng, while his role is probably best as a backup center, I think he's a much better option than what Gibson is. Now, the reason that I say Jeng at 77 could be it could be too low. If they play him 34 minutes a night, it's too low. But I do think that you're going to get massive minutes from Towns and Butler and Wiggins and Teague. And I reckon that 4 spot might be a spot where you see 26 out of Jeng and 22 out of Taj. I think that's a possibility. Maybe it goes 25, 23. I don't think that Gibson's coming in and playing 20 out of 29, but I think it's going to limit Jeng's ability to get 30 plus minutes. And I don't think that he's going to be able to get those 30 plus minutes, which makes him at 77 probably a little bit of a risky pick. But it's not a terrible pick because there is that upside. Because if they go with him and say, well, we're going to play you 33 a night, then he can crack the top 50. We've seen that before, and it's not a usage thing. He's not impacted by Butler. It's his rebounds, it's his steals, it's his blocks, it's his elite percentages for a big man. That's all the things that help for Gorgie Jeng. But he's an interesting one there at 77. Couple of Magic blokes, Evan Fournier at 78 and Lord Alfred Payton at 79. I think Fournier at 78 is too high, and I think Payton at 79 might be a little bit too low. I really like what Payton did at the end of last season. He's one of those guys, one of those point guards that I'd be looking for in those mid-rounds rather than in the late rounds where he's currently sitting at that 79 zone. He was on fire at the end of last season. High field goal percentage, got his free throws up, huge assists, great rebounds. Scoring was okay, good steals, blocking shots. I think that Shelvin Mack's not challenging him. DJ Augustine's terrible. So I think that Lord Alfred is a guy that if he's at 79, I'm all for that. I'm not worried about the percentages as some people might be. Can't shoot, but percentages are fine. And the free throws actually took a big step up at the end of last season. As for Fournier, I just don't think he's going to do enough in enough categories to be the guy that I want at that sort of a spot. Got a couple of rookies to talk about next. Lonzo Ball at 81. I think it's too low. And when I get to the ADPs a little bit later, you'll see that that's the case. Lonzo's fantasy numbers for this season, he should be, in my opinion, the number 1 fantasy rookie this year. I had someone say to me the other day, don't you think his minutes might be in trouble with Jordan Clarkson there? And I don't think that's the case. I don't think that they're going to be limiting Lonzo to 26 a night so that they can play Jordan Clarkson at point guard. I think we all need to realize that Jordan Clarkson's not very good. That he's not a point guard for a start, and he's not very good. He's a 6th man who should play 24 to 25 a night, and I don't think it's going to impact Lonzo. Lonzo will get 30 a night, not points, minutes, and he should be able to get 7 to 8 assists in that time, maybe 1.5 steals. His points won't be high, and that's something you do have to pay attention to if you've drafted lower scorers earlier on. But Lonzo at 81, if he's there at 81, I'm all over that, and I'm not normally a high rookie guy because 81 is not his ceiling. His ceiling is 40. And that I legitimately think his ceiling can be top 40 this year. It's probably not likely to get there, but that's his ceiling. So if you have to take Lonzo at 50, that's a little bit dicey. If you can take him at 80, go right ahead. Totally for that. Markelle Fultz comes in a couple of spots below him, and he is at 80. Where's my numbers? He is at 83. And I think, again, if you're getting him at 83, that's pretty good value. Now, he has a chance to crack the top 50. Probably not as high a chance as what Lonzo Ball does, but I think he should be able to crack the top 70 in his minutes there. People are like, they're going to be limiting his minutes. They're going to be, resting him on back-to-backs. Why? Why would they be doing that? I don't see that being the case at all. I am all in for Lonzo Ball. I still think he should be the number 1 player for Dynasty rookie drafts. I know people will say Lonzo. It's still Fultz to me. It's Fultz, Ball, Smith at the top 3, and that's my order for those guys with Isaac at 4. But I think that Fultz at 83, if you can get him at that spot, which you probably won't, but if you can get him there, again, that's giving you room for him to grow. It's also giving you room for him to suck for the first 2 months as he's outside the top 100, which will probably happen, and then for him to be a top 50 guy down the stretch. But you're not wasting a top 50 pick on a guy that's going to be outside the top 100 for 2 months. If you're getting him at 83, 84, 85, that zone, I think that's totally fine. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at 84? Not really. We've seen Caldwell-Pope, and him in Detroit, it's never been an issue of, he's just not getting enough of the ball. He's just not getting enough shots up. He's just not having the opportunity. He was playing shitloads of minutes. He could shoot it whenever he wanted to. It didn't go in, and he doesn't do enough in other areas. So I think there's a little bit of Laker bump going on here, thinking, he's going to a bad team. He's going to be able to do everything. He was on a bad team last year. The Pistons weren't a good team, and he just isn't that guy. He is a fine fantasy guy. He hits some threes. He's a good defender that doesn't necessarily translate into high steals. But at that point, there are better options on the board, in my opinion. Eric Gordon at 88 also feels a little bit too high. The addition of Chris Paul, I think, is going to hurt him a little bit. While there are going to be minutes for Gordon there are times last season when he had the ball in his hand and could initiate the offense a little bit. That won't happen this year because it's either going to be Harden or it's going to be Chris Paul. It's not going to be anyone else. So that's going to hurt his assist numbers. He's also horrible for the second half of the year, and that gets a little bit clouded after his red-hot start. I'm not taking him at 88, especially when there's some other guys here on the board, like Nerlens Noel at 91. I know he hasn't signed, but once he signs, he's better than 91. Even if he plays 25 minutes a night, he's better than the 91st ranked player. His steals and blocks ability are through the roof, and if I get him at that spot, I am all for it. If I can get Jeremy Lin at pick 95, that is the stupidest pick of the draft pretty much. Lin, like Russell, can be a top 50 player this year without too much concern. A lot of people will be like, he's injury prone. Yeah, look, okay, he had a hamstring injury last year. It was bad and it recurred. That doesn't scare me off him. Kenny Atkinson's going to limit his minutes. Well, is he really? He limited his minutes when he came back from his hamstring, wisely so. But before he went out, he played 30 minutes in like the first 3 of the first 5 games, I believe, 31, 32 minutes. And I think that you'll see that more from Atkinson this year. You'll see, he might not play 33 a night, but I think he's going to get 30 a night. And we even saw it down the stretch when they could have just shut him down, when they had no reason to play him. Lin came back and started playing 28, 29 after the hamstring. And, remember, tearing it up. Lin at 95 if he is there at 95, you should have absolutely zero hesitation. That is as no-brainer as it comes. Rajon Rondo's at 98. And much like on ESPN, it's too low. He should be higher. I don't like Rondo. I don't think he's a good player, but New Orleans is shit, and they're going to do dumb things, and he's going to play, and he's going to have a chance to crack the top 70. That's a good pick there, but you've got to obviously be able to deal with his deficiencies. Derrick Rose at 104, that is as dumb as it gets. Sorry, even if Kyrie goes, right, I'm not even sure Derrick Rose is worth 104th pick in that situation. He might be, but it's debatable. There's no way that you pick him there. Gary Harris is the 107th ranked player on Yahoo. That will undoubtedly change. He has a shot to be a top 50 guy, probably more realistic to be a top 70 guy, but he was a top 50 guy post All-Star last year. Him and Nikola Jokic is a tremendous pairing. A lot of people are talking about the Nuggets, and they're talking about Jokic and Harris, and Millsap's going to come, it's going to hurt them. Remember, they lost the Rooster. Gallinari's gone, so Millsap comes in, replaces Gallinari. That's the change. What big amount is Harris losing? Is Jokic losing? Harris is a rotisserie delight with his great field goal percentage, good free throw percentage, hits some threes. His assist numbers have gone up. His ball handling, his scoring. He heads into his 4th season. A big year for Gaz. That is a bargain at 107. When you think of that, Jordan Clarkson's 109th. There is no comparison between those two. There's no way I want Clarkson at 109. I believe Clarkson should be undrafted. Marquise Chris at 112. I've said this plenty of times. I don't think he's good. I don't even think he's going to become good. But at 112, there's value that he's a chance for a top 80 guy this year because he's going to play minutes and he's going to put up fantasy stats. But everyone who remembers Tony Roten, that doesn't mean you're a good player. And that's sort of how I feel about Chris. He's still young, but I don't think he gets it at all. But he's still going to be able to get close to a 111 with some good scoring and rebounds. And I think that's value there. And then you have the other side of it, one spot later, Fart and Will Barton's at 113. Like, no. Why do we think that Barton's getting anywhere near that high? Same with Marcus Morris at 114. Marcus Morris was at 114 last year when he played way too many minutes. How's he getting to Boston and going, all right, guys, I'm in on Marcus Morris. Give me the 35 a night and let me go and shoot lots of shots and miss them. They're just dumb picks. Taj Gibson at 115. Dumb pick. I want these last couple of picks to be upside, guys. There's no upside in any of those. Now, I could say that Jason Tatum at 119, there's upside, but how is he realizing that upside? Jay Crowder, Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, they all getting hurt? Maybe that's what happens for Tatum, but that's a pick where you pick it, and then a week later you go, well, he's playing 17 minutes a night, so probably not. Mason Plumlee at 123. He's not the starting center for Portland anymore, remember? He's not even signed to a team anywhere, and if he is, he'll be the backup center behind Nikola Jokic. And he won't play minutes with Jokic because Paul Millsap's there now. That is a ludicrous pick, especially when the guy behind him is Dennis Smith at 124, which I can't see any situation in which Dennis Smith goes at 124, but that's where they've pre-ranked him, and he is a guy that you should be scrolling down that list, adding him into your queue, and making sure you grab him 40 spots before that, I think. I think in that 80 zone where I talked about Lonzo and Fultz, in that sort of zone for Smith is a totally fine area to grab him. That's a ludicrously low spot. I'll go through I've got a list of these other guys now. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Buddy Hield at 125. I don't like Bud, but I think he can crack the top 100, so that's value there. Asa Gordon at 127. Fantastic value. I know he's very much Victor Oladipo. Killed me last year. Remember how good he was in the second half of the year. And actually, Adam King wrote a good thing about Aaron Gordon and his second half stats over on Red Rock Basketball. So check that out. I would be stunned if Gordon doesn't exceed that value. They're stunned. So I'm targeting him everywhere I can if I can get him around that zone. Trevor Booker at 131 is too high. Sorry, Trev. Charlie Okafor at 139. We're just taking the piss now. Jamal Murray, the Blue Arrow at 144, bananas. He should be taken in the top 70. I've got no hesitation with that. That is a stupid ranking, as is Jingling Joe Ingles at 150, another guy who, to me, feels like pretty much a lock for the top 110. Patty Mills at 165. I don't think that Mills is a great fantasy player, but he's better than that. And he's going to have 29, 30 minutes a night at point guard to begin the season while Parker is out. Hollis Jefferson at 173, another guy down the list that you want to add. Great late round pick. Same as Johnny Collins at 176 and Norm Powell at 182. And they'll throw in Joshy Richardson at 183. All of those guys, there's no... Powell maybe not, but Richardson at 183, bananas. Collins at 176, bananas. All those guys should be inside the top 150 comfortably. Same as Milos Teodosic, who's at 188. I don't know if Teodosic will start. We need to hear about it. But I think if they start Beverly and Rivers, having a Teodosic, Lou Williams backcourt is horrendous in the second unit. So I think that Teodosic has a real chance to start next to Beverly, and he's going to rack up assists. He's going to get steals. He's going to hit threes. He's a great late pick, as is Karis LeVert at 187, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at 195, and Skal Labissiere at 197. Probably the two most egregiously bad rankings on Yahoo is Torian Prince at 206 when he's going to be a top 100 guy, and The Undertaker. Where's my button? There it is. Dwayne Dedmon is ranked at 209th. Now, a lot of people don't realize how good Dedmon is. The Hawks center situation is him. It is Miles Plumlee. It's Mike Muscala. Dedmon's starting, and even if he plays 25 minutes a night, he has a chance to be a top 100 guy. If he plays 30 minutes a night, well, we're talking pushing top 75 there. At 209, that's bananas. Larry Nance at 216. I don't think he's a standard league guy, but he's better than that. Tim Mozgov at 220. Who's the Brooklyn Nets centers? Mozgov and Jarrett Allen. Legitimately it. That's it. Oh, Quincy Acey, but seriously. That's it. Mozgov sucked last year. I know that. But there is no one here to take these minutes. No one. So he is definitely someone to look at. Chandler Parsons at 221. Put him in the Victor Oladipo mold. Oh, man. Killed me. Just killed me last year. Always injured. He was. But if you take him in your last pick, he has top 50 upside, and that is absolutely everything you want with your last pick. Now, I don't know how healthy he's going to be. I don't know if he's going to be sitting back-to-back games. I would hope not. He's been out since March. Hopefully he's okay. But at 221, or you're picking at 155, you take him. It's simple. Stan Johnson at 297, ludicrous. He's going to have a chance to be a starter and play 30 minutes and could crack the top 150. Pat McCaw at 338, not going to be a standard league guy, but this is important for you guys in 16-team leagues. McCaw is really good, and he is going to be an impactful guy probably in 16-team leagues, so you need to scroll down to get him. Ramon Sessions at 345, probably starts the season as the Knicks starting point guard, and while that might only be useful for the first 2 months of the season, you're drafting for the start of the season. You should be looking at those last picks, apart from upside picks, but guys who might be helpful for a month and then not so helpful. And I think Sessions fits that spot really well. A couple of other late guys that are important. Denzel Valentine at 350 could very well start for the Bulls at small forward, and he has the ability to handle the ball like Jimmy Butler did, so he could easily crack the top 150. Dragon Bender,
bite my shiny metal ass.
He's at 400, much better than that. Again, this is more for deeper leagues. He's a 16-teamer. He could be seeing 25 a night this year. We don't know yet. Check Diallo at 420. Bananas, that's way too low. He's going to be the primary backup, I believe, and has a chance to crack the top 250. And the other one, or one of the other ones, DeAndre Bembry at 428, could overtake Kent Bazemore this year. Going to be much better than this. Wayne Selden at 452. He could be your opening night starting shooting guard for the Memphis Grizzlies. Deeper leagues pay some attention. Bogdan Bogdanovic at 552 is what? I think he's going to be the starting small forward for the Kings. I think he can crack the top 160. I think he's got a chance at the top 120 if everything goes his way. That is stupid, and I would have no problem with taking him with a last pick in a standard league. Jarrett Allen at 554. I talked about the Nets centers already. If Mozgov sucks, they could just start him and play him 27 a night, and then that's a great value. And John Isaac at 535. I know that Isaac's path to minutes are going to be limited, but he has got Fantasy Star written all over him. And you're talking 16-team leagues or anything dynasty related. You need to get your hands on Isaac at that spot. That is ridiculous. So let's have a look through the ADP data. Again, most of it is really skewed by what's happened with these ranks. So there's nothing that's crazy when you look at it. Like, Hayward's ADP is 25 when his rank is 24. So a lot of the things that are ranked incorrectly, in my opinion, are coming through in these ADPs. But you'll see a few little things change. Like Miles Turner's rank is 31, but his ADP is 29. So people are going a little bit higher there, as they should. But there's not much that changes in the ADP data, with the exception of Lonzo Ball, whose ADP is at 55. So when you get to 55, that scares me off taking him at that spot. Rank at 81 is great. ADP at 55, that becomes a little bit of a harder pill to swallow. So I'm not sure I'm fully in on all of that. But you see most of the other guys, most of the other, Markel Fultz is at 70, 79. I'm okay with drafting him at 79 if that's his ADP. Nerlens Noel moves from 91 to 79 from rank to ADP. That's getting a little bit more common sensey. Zebo's drifted from 74 out to 80. Again, a bit more common sensey. The weird one to me, though, is Lord Alfred Payton was ranked 79th and he's getting picked at 82. Don't really understand why he's drifting out so much, but that's what's happening. Jeremy Lin still got an ADP of 95. Craziness there. To me, I just don't understand why he is so low. And Gaz Harris's ADP is still 106. Craziness. Aaron Gordon's come in 20 spots at 106, so you can see people starting to, maybe it's all the smart people listen to this podcast, people starting to listen to that and see that, he needs to be taken higher. Dennis Smith in 13 spots to 112. That's an important one for him there as well. Marquise Chris, weirdly, at 121. So people actually going with him after his rank, which again, that's a weird one. I don't really understand that one. The Blue Arrows come into 130 from 144. So again, people realizing where there are some decent picks here in this ADP data. But again, these things would change. They'll change. I don't know when they'll change, but I would guess they'll change at some point in the next 2 weeks. So there will be some adjustments in some of these ones. We'll adjust significantly, like Murray, I believe, like Harris, and you'll find guys like Šarić and that drop pretty significantly. Don't forget, sign up to Patreon, patreon.com/redrock_bball, and check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can hear your team every day. A couple of other podcasts coming this week. Not sure exactly on the topics, but stay tuned. Hopefully have a guest on for one of them. That guest will remain secret at this point, and I'll let you know once we confirm our details. Most likely they're coming on this week, but I'll let you know once we sort it out. Subscribe to this podcast, leave a review and a rating. It is a great way that you can help the show out, and I'm always very much appreciative of that. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Evan Turner.